and here is the video.
I think it is important to begin this with a fact about the most recent Nobel Prize in Physics. It was awarded to Alain Aspect, John Clauser, and Anton Zeilinger. These three essentially proved that the universe is not locally real. This means that matter is dependent on the observer and implies that consciousness is foundational to reality. Why do I bring this into the discussion about an overview of Skinwalker Ranch? Well, it is to demonstrate that current physics may not be the answer to discovering what is going on at this location in the Uinta Basin of northeastern Utah. According to Frank Salisbury and Joseph Jr. Hicks, high strangeness has been ubiquitous in the Uinta Basin for at least 80 years. It is recorded in the book by Salisbury presenting Jr. Hicks' research into the phenomenon in that immediate region. Then, there is the book, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, and most recently the docuseries on the History Channel, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. I mention these three specifics because they are all interrelated and they paint a unified picture of the fact that consciousness is at work in this area in an anomalous and paranormal way. Of course, it is not just the above three that have led me to this conclusion, but they provide the framework that needs to be fleshed out. Since the 1960s and going back hundreds if not thousands of years, there are reports of UAPs, poltergeists, orbs, cryptids, and all-around strange happenings with the area. That would be very difficult to believe if reality is indeed material. However, if the universe is not locally real, if it needs an observer to collapse the wave function into a particle of matter, then all of those supposed anomalies and paranormal experiences would be possible. It can even account for how two individuals see the same event or object differently. It is in a non-locally real universe that all of the anomalies can easily exist. This brings us to the Uinta Basin and Skinwalker Ranch. Current physicalist, materialist science asserts that the UAP phenomenon has to be nuts and bolts and the product of a further advanced civilization capable of unknown physics. But, if one looks at the universe in terms of the latest advancements in quantum mechanics, there emerges a plausible way that what we call and consider the paranormal could in fact be normal, or at least feasible, just not normal with our current understanding. And, if it is not locally real, it could even seem like it was spiritual and not natural or material. This brings me to the book, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. It is a book that details the AAWSAP program and the experiences that happened on Skinwalker Ranch and how they affected the lives of some of the participants even away from the ranch. As it turns out, much of the anomalous phenomena was of a nature that could be considered spiritual or consciousness-generated. AAWSAP was a program financed by the Department of Defense that financed a scientific investigation of UAPs and other high strangeness associated with the ranch. The contractor that received the contract for AAWSAP was Robert Bigelow and his BOSS organization. BOSS stands for the Bigelow Advanced Aviation and Space Studies. AWS-AP was headed up by James Lakatsky of the DoD and also involved an intelligence analyst, Jay Stratton, called Jonathan Axelrod in the book Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. There has been a lot of scorn thrown at the program, especially by Stephen Greenstreet of the New York Post. He has done a video series that ridicules the program and throws shade on all those associated with it. BOSS had among many employees Colm Kelleher, who headed the program, and others like Hal Puthoff who were involved with remote viewing. There are photos that show Kelleher and Puthoff along with Jacques Vallée and Robert Bigelow from an earlier association. These are all individuals that were convinced by experience of the strangeness of the phenomenon. This fact adds to the ridicule that the venture gets from those firmly ensconced in a materialist physicalist dogmatic approach to science. During this time, Robert Bigelow owned Skinwalker Ranch. The AAWSAP program lasted through 2012 when it ended. 4 years later, Bigelow sold the ranch to Brandon Fugel, a wealthy real estate businessman from Salt Lake City, Utah. This ultimately led to the scientific investigation of the ranch that has culminated in the docuseries on the History Channel, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. This 4-season series continues to document and study all of the anomalous phenomena on Skinwalker Ranch. Moving back to the Nobel Prize in Physics for 2022, I find a question for perhaps a different or alternative perspective of Skinwalker Ranch. What if all of the materialist, physicalist scientists are wrong about the phenomena? What if consciousness is fundamental and the material universe with space and time and matter arises out of consciousness? That would make James Lukatsky, Colm Kelleher, and Hal Puthoff et al. Not ridiculous but scientific pioneers. That would mean that all of the strange experiences reported in the book, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, were actually true. So now, the Brandon Fugel team and the History Channel docuseries are drawing in some circles the same ridicule, skepticism, and accusations that are connected with the former program and the entire phenomenon in the Uinta Basin. In this perspective, it is important that the current team and their effort continue as designed and let the critics be damned. It is possible that the scientific investigation will lead a path closer to understanding the strange universe we live in. Consciousness does not arise from physics. Physics arises from consciousness. I am not a scientist, so this is not a scientific analysis. However, I am a student of cutting-edge science both in the cognitive area and in physics, that it goes a long way to bolster my opinion. I am more of a philosopher and am deeply interested in the nature of reality. This analysis is more philosophical, psychological, and sociological than scientific, especially if you do not view the former three as hard sciences. I hold to some kind of idealistic panpsychist view of reality. It is in this that my interest in Skinwalker Ranch and the docuseries arises. Skinwalker Ranch is a veritable laboratory for consciousness. Sometimes the obvious is obscured. Historically, we have had at the most 250 years of materialist physicalist science. On the other hand, we have had thousands of years of philosophy with humanity trying to answer the basic questions of the nature of reality. Too many people have lost sight of that history and have smugly settled for the more recent history of science. That has been to the peril of advancement in my view. Not to technological advancement. But it has to philosophical advancement in understanding the nature of reality. Every physicalist theory has always been replaced as incomplete and just a portion of the larger story. From Copernicus to Galileo to Newton to Einstein, to all of the many physicists, the understanding of the nature of reality has evolved and each theory has been replaced by the next generation. Those theories were good so far as they went but were simply incomplete. It is time for physicalists to exchange their hubris for humility. So, this brings me to Skinwalker Ranch and the Uinta Basin. There is a remarkable history of personal anecdotal stories about the anomalous and paranormal activities of that area. One of the areas that sociology takes into consideration is people's stories and experiences. They are very important. Testimony has been revered for centuries in the legal area. We have given people the death penalty and locked people up for life based on testimony. The fact is that the more similar testimonies that exist, the more reliable they are. It should be noted that experiences and observations are a product of consciousness. It mystifies me as to why people are so incredulous for people's stories about the anomalous and the paranormal. Especially when these stories of experience have been told over thousands of years by a multitude of experiencers. The overview of the Skinwalker Ranch and its surrounding area shows that a multitude of people have experienced all kinds of anomalous phenomena. It ranges from orbs, to lights, to unusual entities, to unusual energies, to poltergeist activity, and it seems to me like a playground for consciousness. It seems obvious to me that it is consciousness that causes all of the phenomena and that it is for some reason messing with perception. Therefore, investigation and documentation is very important. That is what the docuseries is doing. In addition, the investigation team is openly offering themselves to public scrutiny by their many appearances on YouTube and at conferences. The Insider's website is also giving unprecedented access to the ranch and its environs. No, I am not a blind believer in anything. However, I do believe people until it is proved otherwise. One can intuitively judge people and their stories and their motives. At least I can, and I think many others can as well, and truth be told, All can if they would but trust and develop their gut awarenesses. I believe in the current Skinwalker Ranch team and their stories. I believe the stories told in the book Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. I believe the stories related in the Ryan Skinner and Cheryl Carter books. I believe the stories that were collected by Junior Hicks and recorded in the book, The Utah UFO Display. There are way too many of them, and they have too much in common to be all fictitious. When you add to this all of the stories reported to MUFON and again look at the similarities, the picture is overwhelming. If consciousness is foundational, and it appears that it may be, if as the latest Nobel Prize winners in physics proved that the universe is not locally real is true, then consciousness is likely foundational, and since that has been the predominant theory for thousands of years until the last 200 years, a lot more credence should be given to exploring the experiences of the anomalies, recording them to build a database that can be analyzed by AI and begin to find predominant patterns that exist across the globe and across time. Because of that, I applaud Brandon Fugel and the History Channel for giving Skinwalker Ranch and the Uinta Basin a platform for a large audience to see. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, share and comment. Thanks for watching.